What's up, guys? In this video, I want to go over 3 mistakes that I see students make with simplifying rational expressions, graphing rational equations, as well as solving rational equations. So if you have a test, a quiz, or an exam coming up, this is a great review to make sure that you're not making the same mistakes that I see my students make when they are working through these types of problems. So let's get into what should you be looking out for? What mistakes do you absolutely need to avoid? So the first one is pretty common. It happens all the time, and that just refers or comes along with simplifying. Now, when we're simplifying a rational expression, what we're trying to do is find terms, numbers, expressions that are in the numerator and the denominator that are exactly the same. Then we can apply the division property and divide them out. But the caveat for that is they have to be separated by multiplication. So a lot of times we'll see a problem that looks something like this, fairly basic, like we're not going to do anything crazy here. But if I have an x squared plus 4x plus 4, all right, so students, let's say they're taking a test and they're kind of getting a little frustrated or they feel like they're not going to have enough time. And they just remember, like when you're simplifying something, find whatever's in the numerator and the denominator that's exactly the same and divide it out. So you say, oh, those divide out. Here's 4 and a 4. Those divide out. And therefore, I'm left with a -1 over a 4x. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, that is incorrect, okay? Yes, we have the right idea. We're looking for terms, expressions, and numbers that are in the numerator and the denominator that are exactly the same. But we just can't divide them across addition and subtraction. They have to be separated by multiplication. That is where our arch nemesis comes into, is factoring, okay? So simplifying rational expressions, more often than not, you're just going to be doing a lot of factoring. So let's go and take a look at this problem again and say, all right, how can I go ahead and factor this? So therefore, I can have my terms separated by multiplication. So therefore, I can then properly simplify the rational expression. So in this numerator, hopefully you recognize that's a difference of 2 squares. So I can rewrite that as an x minus 2 times a x plus 2. And then over here, you can hopefully recognize that's a perfect square trinomial. Now, there's another mistake that students will make with this, and so I'll do it once, but this is a x plus 2 quantity squared, okay? Now remember, what that simply means is that really is an x plus 2 times an x plus 2. So for the sake of explaining on this video, I'm actually not going to write it squared. I'm going to write it as an x plus 2 because a lot of times students will just make that mistake and they will forget that when things divide out, that there's still an extra x plus 2 in the denominator, okay? So now, hopefully you guys can see, that's multiplied 2, right? Those are separated by multiplication. Now I have these expressions separated by multiplication. Now I can say that those are going to divide to 1. So now I'm going to have a final answer of x minus 2 divided by x plus 2. And this can be a mistake or not, but just always make sure you're following your directions. A lot of times, sometimes we ask for the restrictions, and sometimes the restrictions are not necessary. But just be careful whenever we have a variable in that denominator of a rational expression. We want a lot of times verify or make sure we are identifying what are the restrictions. We know x cannot equal a -2, right? Because that makes the denominator -2. So again, always follow your teacher's directions or the directions on the test. All right, let's get into graphing. So when we have to graph a function, let's say y equals a x squared plus 3x plus 2 divided by a x squared minus 1. The biggest mistake that I see students make is not wanting to simplify, right? Typically, we learn kind of simplifying first with rational functions, and students just hate it because it just requires so much factoring. And then we get into graphing and we learn things like asymptotes and x and y intercepts, and it's like, all right, there's a nice little break. But ladies and gentlemen, we cannot forget to simplify. Always look to simplify. The reason being is if we have a hole that occurs at an x or a y intercept, there is no x and y intercept that is a part of the problem. It is a hole. It is an undefined value. So what we always want to do is always make sure we simplify first. And students make this mistake all the time. And I'll show you what they do, okay? So first, let's go ahead and simplify it because we're going to do this correctly. So I can factor this. What 2 numbers multiply 2, add, give me 3. I can rewrite that as an x plus 2 times an x plus 1. And then here in my denominator, I have a x squared minus 1. Again, that's a difference of 2 squares. So x minus 1. That looks written bad. So that's an x minus 1 times an x plus 1. Aha! Again, my terms are separated by multiplication. So now I can go ahead and divide those out, right? Don't divide out the x squareds over here. You got to write it in factored form. So really what I'm looking for the x and the y intercepts is going to be for the function x plus 2 divided by a x minus 1. That's critically important, right? Because here, even though this got divided out, we know our still restrictions, x cannot equal a -1 as well as a +1, right? Because from our original function, those are the two values that make our function equal to 0, which is not good. Now, what would be the mistake the students will make? They remember to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. These are good little tips that, students kind of remember rather easily. If I want to find the x-intercept, yeah, you put y equals 0, but really the easiest thing to do is just set your numerator equal to 0. So they would just go and say x squared plus a 3x plus 2, and then set that equal to 0. And then we know that factored form is x plus 2 times x plus 1 is equal to 0. Then you can apply the zero product property, set x plus 2 equal to 0, x plus 1 equals 0, and you get two x-intercepts, x equals -1 and x equals -2. But again, ladies and gentlemen, remember our restrictions over here. X cannot equal a -1. So a lot of students will write x equals -1 as an x-intercept. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, it is incorrect, okay? So don't do that. It's very important that you always look to simplify things first. Now, the y-intercept, in case you were just wondering, that is when x is equal to 0, or it's your constant over your constant, which in this case is y equals a -2, right? Because those go to 0, so 2 over -1 is a -2. So this one is our extraneous value. It's not, well, no, it's not extraneous. It's just undefined. So we're going to put a x through that. Okay, so don't make that mistake. Make sure you always simplify first. All right, last example, solving. Now, when students get into solving, we can get to some pretty complicated problems, okay? And so when students see something that's rather easy, they a lot of times want to go back to, oh, let's do what I already know, right? So a lot of times when we're first teaching solving, the mistake that my opinion, a lot of teachers will make is they'll start with a proportion and they'll go into cross multiplication to use that proportion or cross product. I don't like that. And the reason being, and again, I've done it before, so I'm not throwing shade on any teachers because I've been there before and I've done that. And it's just through my years of experience that I've adjusted how I want to approach students solving rational equations. But when I start with students with a proportion as the easiest example, because it's fairly basic to solve for, and students are familiar with it from Algebra 1, they just remember it. They stick to it. And so whenever they see a fraction equal to a fraction, they say, hey, I can just go ahead and use the cross product. I'll just do the cross product here, and I'll do the cross product here. And the problem with that is we don't have what we call a proportion. Yes, a fraction is equal to a fraction, but that fraction is being subtracted from 2, right? So we cannot apply the cross product. You can only apply the cross product, ladies and gentlemen, when you have a proportion. That means a fraction over a fraction. Okay, so yeah, I don't have anything wrong with the cross product. It makes our life a lot easier. It's helpful. It's easy to remember. But you can only apply the cross product when you have a proportion, a fraction equal to a fraction. This is not a proportion. So don't make that mistake. All right. Now, there's another mistake that I have at this that will have as we work through this problem. So what do we do? Or where do I like to approach things of a problem like this? Well, you could get common denominators and then create a proportion. That's not a bad idea. Because you could multiply by x over 1 times x over 1 and then combine them and then do a proportion. But my thought process is I just want to get the greatest common denominator of all of my fractions. And then I can multiply everything by that and just focus on the numerators. So if I look at the LCD, you can see I have a 1 here. This is x plus 1. And this can actually be factored into an x times x plus 1. So in my opinion, or not my opinion, I know the LCD in this case is x times a x plus 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create that denominator for each of one of mine. Now remember, to create equivalent fractions, whatever you do in the denominator, you have to do in the numerator. So over here, I already have an x plus 1. So I'm just going to multiply by an x. Whatever you do in the denominator, make sure you do in the numerator. And then over here, I don't have anything. So I'm going to multiply that times an x plus 1. And then x times an x plus 1. Now, it might be easier in this example just to not write it in the expanded form or the factor form, but write it in the expanded form, which is an x squared plus x. And I'm not sure why I didn't do that. So we're going to do it here. Okay. So let's write that as a x squared plus x. That's going to multiply here in the numerator as well as in the denominator. Okay. So what is that going to give us? Well, that's going to give me a 2x squared plus 2x all over a x squared plus x minus a x over, if you multiply that, that's going to be a x squared plus x, and then equal to a 1 over a x squared plus x. Now you could multiply everything times x squared plus x, and what would happen is you'd get rid of all your denominators. So that's just going to leave me with my numerator, which is a 2x squared plus 2x minus x equals 1. Now I recognize this is a quadratic, and we know when we're dealing with quadratics, we always want to go ahead and set it equal to 0. So I'll subtract a 1 over to the other side, and I get a 2x squared plus 8x is equal, minus 1. Minus 1 is equal to 0. Now I can solve by either factoring, quadratic formula, or completing the square. So what I'm simply going to do is say, all right, let's see if I can break this up into a product of two binomials. So I have a 2x and then a x is equal to 0. I want my outer and my inner products to add to an x. So therefore I want this to be a positive one and this to be a negative one. Now I didn't show the zero product property on the last example. So let's just go and break it up, because when you have a product equal to 0, you can apply the zero product property, add 1, divide by 2. So x equals a 1/2. And over here, x equals a negative 1. However, remember when I talked about like the restrictions and that like first video about making sure, following through? That's really important, because what are the values that make my denominator 0 here? It's going to be 0. So x cannot equal 0, as well as when x equals negative 1, because those make our denominator equal to 0. Well, what's the problem over here? One of my solutions is in the restriction. So this is what we call an extraneous solution. And that's the last mistake students will make. They get so happy for doing a problem like this, figuring it out, finding the solutions, and then they select x equals negative 1 as a solution. No, it's a solution to the quadratic. It's not a solution to the original equation, because the original equation is restricted when x is equal to 0 and x equals negative 1, or it's undefined at those values. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, that is an extraneous solution. This is going to be your solution. And those are going to be the 3 top mistakes that I see students make with rational equations and expressions. If you want to see more videos of me working through rational expressions, then go and check out the videos and playlists I have for you down in the description. Or if you really like me being able to highlight some mistakes, then check out the next video I have for you here. Cheers.